Today we're talking about building a skill stack, all those little skills incrementally that you need to learn over a period of time and where to insert them. Don't worry about the billion-dollar stuff, that can come later. It's a fucking pipe dream unless you get this right, okay? Why would you be learning about how to write Facebook ads when you can't even talk to a human to close a deal on the phone? People will read books about how to be a billionaire and they haven't even made $10 yet, right? So what's a skill stack, right? It's pretty self-explanatory, I get it. But here's the thing, I think people tend to learn a whole bunch of skills generically and they're not very specific with it. I think learning skill sets, if you're building a business and life in general, should be very specific, right? Specificity wins at the end of the day. It's the same thing with product, right? One product, one channel, one avatar, right? Just do one thing. So what I mean by that is learn short form skills. Why? Because it makes you efficient, makes you highly productive, because most people don't operate like that. So if you can force yourself or train yourself to operate like that, you'll win because you're not learning things that you don't need to learn at the time that you're executing against, if that makes sense. Let me break it down on some simple formats, right? I always say when you build a business, you should iterate, right? So you do one thing, then you move to the next thing, then you move to the next thing. Now the first iteration or the first step will dictate the second step, the third step, the fourth step, and the fifth step, okay? So the first step might be, how do we get to $5,000, right? A week in sales, who knows? The second step is how do we escalate that to 2X, to 20? Then how do we go to 40? Then what do we need to do to get to 50 and then 80 and then 100, right? Those are all different steps. Now you don't learn skills at $100,000 that you need to learn at 5. They're completely different skill sets, right? Conceptually, some of them are the same, but what happens is people will read books about how to be a billionaire and they haven't even made $10 yet, right? Or they haven't even broke their first $1 million in business revenue, but yet you're reading a book about how to be a billionaire. Look, we're in a little bit of that market, right? There's people on Instagram standing in front of Lamborghinis talking about that, but that's bullshit. I wouldn't listen to those guys or girls. So focus, specificity wins. What skill sets do you need at the time? And again, it's about where are your deficiencies? What are you good at? What are you not good at, right? So if you're a founder in a business and you have absolutely no sales skills or don't know how to communicate with people, you can do one or two things. You can learn how to do that. Highly valuable skill, by the way, or you can employ someone to do that. Now, if you can't afford to employ somebody, you have to learn those skills. So why would you be learning about how to write Facebook ads when you can't even talk to a human to close a deal on the phone? So all I'm saying is think about your skill stack, right? So for today's ep was about just identifying it in the first instance and then how do you break it down? So iterations, right? What do you need to learn first? So to run a business, I'm gonna run through some of the basic 101 skills I think that you need. The first thing is you need to have the concept, tick. The second thing you need to understand what a business is. So you should be reading business books about structure, setup, and all that sort of stuff. Third thing, finances, financials, P&Ls, forecasting, targets, learn that, right? So now we're sort of in that first 1 to 2 stages of building a business. Don't worry about the billion-dollar stuff, that can come later. It's a fucking pipe dream unless you get this right, okay? So running a P&L is really important. I always say that, and I may sound like a scratch record. For those of you who don't know what a record is, it's like a CD. Anyway, let's not go there. So start small and build those skills over time, right? You need to know how to build a P&L, how to forecast. You need to know how to sell. You need to know how to pitch. So learn those skills, listen to those podcasts, tune into those courses and tune into those books that are talking about that. Don't worry about the billion-dollar stuff yet. Now start to build those skills over a period of time. Base your decisions on what you need to learn at the time you need to learn them or what your business is experiencing. So I always say if my business is facing a challenge, what do I need to learn, right? Because if there's a challenge, that means I don't have all the information and I'm ill-informed, right? So I need to go and find it. So that tells me what I need to be reading. And I always have that saying, don't read 100 books by 100 different people. Find one great person and read one book 100 times, right? So building a skill stack is sort of the same, but it moves in ebbs and flows. So if I'm in stage 1 and stage 2, you know, those first 2 iterations of my product or my service I'm trying to deliver to a market, I am seriously focused on that. You know, marketing, ClickFunnels, how to write ads, how to write copy, how to do design. And I'm doing short courses around that. I don't need to worry about all the bullshit. I just need to know how to do that, because if I can do that well, then I can move to the next stage. How do I convert those leads into sales and deals, right? So sales skills, negotiation skills, people skills, psychology, perseverance, conviction. These are all the things I'm learning there after I learn how to do that. I've got to set the company up well. I've got to learn how to generate leads. I've got to learn how to close deals, right? And then later on you go, okay, I need to learn what a CRM is, what systems are, and what policies do I need around the business now that I'm starting to employ people. HR stuff, much sort of later on down the track. I never think a business needs an HR person until you're at least about 30 people or you're turning over about 10 million, right? Before that, I really don't think you need one. Building a skill stack is a learn as you go model. Don't build the wrong skills in reverse order because it won't help you. It forces you to get a little bit confused. You take bigger leaps than you should be because you're reading books at the wrong stage of a cycle, right? So business is a cycle, customers move in a cycle, and everything sort of moves in a cycle. Human beings move in cycles. So my advice would be to go slow, write down what you need in the stages that you are at the growth of your business, including yourself personally, right? So where are you at? What do you know, what don't you know? You want to write those down. Everybody has some skills in something. And if you're looking to build a business, you need to identify what they are. Those skills are good, tenable skills. Don't go reading books about it, you've already got it. Read books about the stuff that you need to. Learn and do courses about the stuff that you really need to. Again, only in the stage in which you need to do it. So my thing is structuring a business is number one. Obviously having the right vehicle, having the right product and service, all that sort of stuff, that's a no-brainer. I'm not going to talk about that. But structuring the company. The second thing is financials. How do you get the economics right and what does that look like? The second thing is forecast and targeting. The next thing is reporting. How are you going to record sales? The next thing is what does the sales process look like? You got to put that down on paper, so you need to do some research about that. The next thing is marketing and advertising. So how do you generate leads to support sales revenue that generates cash, right? And then execution against ClickFunnels and all the advertising and marketing stuff that you've learned. By the way, I'm talking about if you're doing this solely on your own. Most founders sort of start there, and so you sort of need to do that. And then the leads come in, so how do you track that? And then, is there a touch point where you're calling those leads? And then, so you need to know about psychology, communication, EQ, IQ, right? And then the next thing is what does a customer sales cycle look like? And then the last thing is sort of nurturing customers, right? And then it might be surveying. There's another skill set that you need to learn. And inside those key verticals are tens of other little things that you need to learn as well. So you need to go deep, right? And that's just working on your own, starting your own business. Like there's so much to learn. And if you think you know it all, I think it's impossible. But my advice is just learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. I'll move on to the next thing. Execution is everything, right? Look, good ideas are great, but execution matters. If you don't have the execution skills, you need to learn it. It's probably one of the underrated skill sets of all time. And I think it's the most important because without good quality execution, everything fails, right? So say if we picked one of those verticals that I just mentioned, say marketing, right? Writing ad sets, doing creatives, using meta management pages and Google pages, Google AdWords, search engine optimization, all that stuff, right? You have to execute against all of that. So inside that marketing tranche, there's probably 5 or 6 key things that you need to learn. Here's the deal, just pick one. Right? One thing at any one time. Because there's no point in learning 6 things really poorly and executing against them because it'll fail. It's like the guy who has 6 companies, right? And all of them are doing pretty average. And then he's going, oh yeah, but I don't know what's gonna work. I said, look, they could probably all work, but the reason why they'll all fail is because you're doing too many things at once. Pick one thing on the right vehicle, so you gotta have the right vehicle. Pick one thing and go deep. Go really fucking deep, right? And that company will probably work out. Young entrepreneurs these days are just pivoting and building the first level and then knocking it down and then building another level when you should just be building upon the first one, right? And that's what good sustainable growth in business is all about. Now, execution again is everything. All of those things, just throw it in the bin. If you can't execute, and you're sporadic and you're all over the place and you're trying to execute 5 different things and you haven't learned it properly and it's all a bit of a mess and you're all stressed out. The reason is because when you execute, it's either failing, right? It's not working and it's stressing you out. It's because you haven't learned the skill set to do it properly. I just think that's most of it most of the time, 99% of the time, right? The other 1% is because you just don't have the ability, right? But everything can be learned, right? We're not born with an MBA in our back pocket, right? We have to learn how to gather those skills over a period of time. Yeah, some people can learn them faster than others. Some people will retain information better than others. Some people were fortunate to grow up in an environment, in a socio-demographic where, education was affordable. And some of us were poor, like me and my family, where we couldn't afford to go to university. And the university that I did, I paid for myself, right? So we all have our problems, but what I'm saying is none of that matters if the execution is executed poorly, right? So think about that. So just to recap, so move in stages, iteration after iteration after iteration, learn the vertical skill set. So it's a learn as you go model. That's critically important to get that right. Inside those tranches, when you move through those stages, even though it's marketing, like I said, if we use that as an example, there's 10 things inside that. Pick one, please. Just go deep on one thing. So the first thing will be, how do I use Facebook Manager? Because you need to schedule the ads, right? Or it might be, how do I use Canva to build my ads, or whatever SaaS platform you're using, or Adobe Illustrator, or whatever it may be. You have to learn those tools. Don't be a dabbler. I think Tony Robbins, right? He keeps going on about dabblers, right? I 100% agree with him. Don't be a dabbler. Like there's, some of the most famous people on the planet, Musk, Gates, Bezos, those sorts of guys, man, they go deep. I remember reading an article on Bezos, and he said all he was focused on was getting a product as fast as he can to the customer. All the software and all the SaaS platforms in the world don't matter. He just said, how do we do that? If someone orders a book off our platform on Monday, how was it in their hand on Tuesday at the same time? Like that was one of his core focuses. And it's pretty simple though, right? But it's impressive because it's very logical that if you do that, it makes sense. And then as soon as he's mastered that, he goes, okay, what's the next thing? I'm doing a little bit of that in some of our companies now, just getting rid of all the noise and getting very laser focused. And we're getting focused on our MTP, which is our massive transformative purpose. So look, I hope that makes sense. Look, go slow, specificity, learn the skills you need to learn at the time you need to learn them. Don't read about the billion-dollar company first. Learn just how to structure a company before you even get started. That would help. Base your decisions on what you need to learn as your business progresses, and focus on execution. Because as I said, good ideas are great, but execution matters, right? Look, I hope you found something that you liked or that you think may work for your business. If you haven't already, look, click the subscribe button. We'd love for you to subscribe. We try to push out as much content and good content as we can. Really appreciate your watching, and look forward to speaking to you next time.